This is the fat old pig we have to deal with. My daughter's voice sliced straight through the happy Thanksgiving chatter, sharp enough to stop my breath. I was still holding the warm dish I had brought her favorite stuffing recipe from when she was 11, when the room erupted in laughter. Sabrina tilted her head, smiling wide at her own joke, as if I were nothing more than a punchline at her new family's table. I forced myself to swallow. Happy Thanksgiving to you too, sweetheart, I said quietly. But my voice barely reached her over the noise. Her husband's parents were seated at the end of the table. They had been laughing along with everyone else. But when the father-in-law finally turned fully toward me, his expression collapsed. His hand stopped midair, his wine glass trembling slightly. "Is that her?" he whispered, staring at me as if I had stepped out of a newspaper headline rather than Sabrina's childhood kitchen. "You did not tell us your mother was the woman we were warned about." The laughter died so fast it felt like a power outage. Chairs shifted. Someone cleared their throat. Sabrina blinked. Confused. "Warned about," she repeated, looking from her father-in-law to me. "What are you talking about?" "She is just my mom." Her mother-in-law shook her head slowly. "No, that is Eleonora Wynne." Her tone was careful, almost fearful. "You never told us." Sabrina's smile faltered. "Eleonora, who, my mom is just she worked admin jobs her whole life." "She does not enough," her father-in-law murmured. His eyes never left mine. "We were told she disappeared, that she retired, that she walked away." He leaned forward. "No one said she had a daughter living in Portland." Sabrina stared at me as if she were seeing a stranger. I set the dish down before I dropped it. My hands were shaking. I had spent 20 years keeping my name buried, keeping the past far away from the only child I had. I thought I had done it well, but now the looks across the table told me the truth. The past I thought I had buried was standing right beside me, breathing down my neck. And everyone in that room recognized it before my own daughter did. The silence stretched, thick enough to choke on, and Sabrina's voice finally cracked as she whispered, "Mom, who are they talking about?" Before I could answer, Sabrina, her husband's mother, stood abruptly. "Eleonora, may we speak with you for a moment?" Her voice was polite in the way a locked door is polite, firm, cold, already closed. I followed her down the hallway. The father-in-law waited there, arms crossed, jaw tight. When the door clicked shut behind us, he spoke first. "You used to be Eleonora Wynne from Wynne Strategic Holdings," he said. "Didn't you?" I breathed in slowly. "I was a long time ago." His eyes narrowed. "You should have disclosed that. I am not applying for a job with you," I replied. His wife stepped closer. "Years ago, our firm pursued a renewable energy contract worth nearly $20 million. We lost it because the opposing negotiator played harder than anyone we had ever seen." Her eyes locked on mine. "That negotiator was you." Her husband added, "Your name circulated like a warning. Lawyers called you a storm. Analysts said you could read a room and strip it bare in minutes. They told us, if she ever resurfaces, avoid her. She is dangerous." I felt their fear pressing in on me. I left that world. I walked away. The mother-in-law shook her head. "You walked into ours tonight." "That matters. Behind us." The door burst open. Sabrina stepped in, her face flushed. "What is going on? Why are you talking to my mom like she is some threat?" Her father-in-law answered without hesitation. "Because she was one. And no one told us she was tied to you." Sabrina's voice sharpened. "My mom worked clerical jobs. She never did anything big." "That is incorrect." He said, "She nearly wiped out our firm 20 years ago." Sabrina stared at me, confusion turning into anger. "Why did you hide this? Why am I hearing this from them?" I tried to speak, but she cut me off. "You made me look like a fool. You let me bring you here without knowing who you are?" Her in-laws exchanged glances, then softened their voices. But not their message. We need clarity, Eleonora, the mother-in-law said. You being here changes dynamics we cannot ignore. Sabrina looked between them and me, her breathing quick and uneven. She waited for an explanation I could not give in that room. I walked past her quietly and opened the door, leaving her with the people who suddenly feared the mother she never truly knew. Sabrina's voice still echoed in my ears as I walked out of her in-laws' house, but it was another voice that rose beneath it, one I had not heard in years. Do not let them corner you, Elle. My husband used to say, you survived worse. He was right. I had. Back in the 1990s, when Portland's Silicon Forest was exploding with tech startups and venture capital, I was not the quiet mother who baked pies and packed school lunches. I was the woman executives whispered about in elevators and boardrooms. Wynn Strategic Holdings had been my battlefield, and I fought like someone who knew no one would save her if she lost. I could still hear the memory of a furious competitor slamming a folder on a conference table.
You cannot win this hostile takeover, he had snarled. You do not have the stomach for it. I remember leaning in. Watch me. And I did win. But winning came with enemies. Men who hated being outmaneuvered by a woman half their age. One of them leaked a story about insider dealings, twisting a routine merger into a manufactured scandal. Investigators cleared me, but the damage was done. My name became headline food. Reporters staked out my office. Every handshake became a threat. My husband told me then, walk away. We have enough. Sabrina needs peace, not sharks circling our door. I chose to believe him. We sold our remaining shares for more money than we would ever spend. Then cancer took him only 3 years later, and I was left alone with a daughter who blamed me for everything she did not understand. I kept my promise to him anyway. I dissolved Wynn Strategic Holdings. I changed my name. I moved Sabrina to a small rental in Selwood and took contract work that made me seem ordinary. I donated quietly, invested quietly, lived quietly. I wanted her to grow up with friends, not boardroom ghosts. But Sabrina grew resentful. She compared her clothes to other girls' dresses. She stared at their houses with long driveways and whispered, "Why do we live like this?" I always said. "We have enough." She always heard, "We have nothing." I never imagined the lie meant to protect her would shape her into someone who measured worth against wealth and used humiliation as a weapon. And now that lie stood between us like a locked door. Sabrina showed up at my door the next morning without calling. She did not step inside. She stood on the porch, arms crossed, jaw tight. "What did you do to them?" she demanded. "Why did they act scared of you?" I opened the door wider. "Come in, Sabrina. We can talk inside." "I do not want tea," she snapped, brushing past me. "I want answers." They were terrified. My husband kept asking why I never told him who you were. I kept my voice steady. "I told you before my old career had enemies." "That is vague." She shot back. "And useless. They think you hid something on purpose." I folded my hands. "I never wanted my past to affect your life." "Well, it has," she said sharply. "And you humiliated me. Do you know how I looked standing there while they whispered like you were some criminal? That was not my doing." "It is always your doing," she said. "You walk in with your mysterious little life, and suddenly I am the one paying for it." Before I could answer, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, then held it out to me. "It is them," she said. "They want to meet you. They said it should be a private, civil discussion." The wording alone told me it would be neither. I met her eyes. "What do they want?" "Sabrina, they want clarity," she said. "They said your history could reflect on the family if things are not handled properly." "Handled," I repeated quietly. She shifted, suddenly restless. "Mom, please just do not make this worse. They are trying to protect their name,
And who protects mine? She flinched as if the question struck her. Just go. Answer their questions. Maybe if you cooperate, it will calm everything down. I watched her walk to her car, her shoulders tight, her movements frantic. She never looked back. I could not tell whether she believed what they told her or whether she simply chose the side that made her feel safest. Rosalind Keener greeted me with the same dry voice she had used in every boardroom 20 years ago. You should have called sooner, Elle. Trouble shows up fast when old money starts moving. I sat across from her at her dining table, the surface covered in folders and a single laptop. I did not think anyone even remembered those accounts. They remember, she said, typing swiftly. And someone tried to access one of your dormant trusts 3 days ago. I felt my chest tighten. Which trust? The education fund from the Enertech merger, she replied. It still holds a little over $4 million, enough incentive for someone bold. She slid a stack of printed documents toward me. Look at these drafts. Power of attorney. Beneficiary change forms. All unsigned, but the signatures at the bottom are copies of yours. I lifted the papers. My own name stared back at me in a shaky imitation. Who did this? I whispered. Rosalind tapped the laptop screen. The attempted login came from an IP address tied to a downtown law firm. That firm belongs to your son-in-law. My throat tightened. You are certain? 100%, she said. Someone there accessed restricted portals and downloaded templates. They are preparing a move. Before I could process it, there was a knock at Rosalind's door. Sabrina walked in without waiting to be invited, carrying a bright smile that did not reach her eyes. Mom, she said warmly, too warmly, I wanted to check on you. You seemed stressed. Rosalind stood. We were in the middle of something. Sabrina. Sabrina ignored her. She touched my arm lightly. Mom, now that things are messy, maybe we should consolidate your assets. I can help. It would make life easier for everyone. I stared at her hand. Why the sudden interest in my accounts? She blinked, feigning innocence. Because I care about you. And my husband's firm knows how to streamline these things. Rosalind let out a small, humorless breath. Sabrina glanced at her, sensing something shift. I pulled my arm back. My assets are not your husband's practice ground. Her smile faltered, revealing the fear beneath. In that moment, I understood she was not just standing beside the people trying to take from me, she was already part of their plan. Rosalind folded her arms and watched me pace her living room. You cannot keep pretending this will resolve itself, she said. Silence worked for 20 years. Elle, it will not work now, I know, I whispered. I should have told Sabrina the truth a long time ago. Rosalind softened. You protected her the only way you knew how, and look what it made her vulnerable to. I said, people who see her as a bridge to my money, people who will use her until she breaks. Rosalind pulled a folder from the table. Then we stopped them. I sat beside her as she opened the folder. We build a 3-layer defense. She said, first layer, full voluntary transparency. You disclose your trusts and holdings directly to the state regulators before anyone can weaponize them. I hesitated. That means my name goes back into public record. It does, she said, but it keeps you safe. And it shows Sabrina's in-laws they cannot twist anything. What is the second layer? I asked. Rosalind slid another stack of documents toward me. We strengthen every trust. We add multi-signature requirements, updated verification procedures, and identity checkpoints. No one gets near your accounts without hitting a wall. And the third layer, a defensive lawsuit, she said. If they escalate, we file immediately. Attempted fraud on a trust of over $4 million is serious. They will not risk it. I leaned back, letting the weight of it settle. I never wanted my life to touch hers this way. Rosalind looked at me carefully. Then tell her the truth. Or tell enough of it so she understands you are not the weak link they think you are. I swallowed hard. I lied to her for so long. I wanted her to grow up believing life was about integrity, not power. But she grew up thinking she was always climbing uphill, looking at others with more. And now she is reaching for what she thinks she deserves. Rosalind said quietly. I will not let them use her, I said, and I will not let her destroy herself, trying to impress people who see her as an asset. Rosalind nodded. Then let us finish what we started. Together we signed the first round of disclosures. My real name, Eleonora Wynne, returned to the page with heavy ink and a heavier promise. The conference room was all glass and sharp edges, a place built for people who enjoyed watching others squirm. Sabrina sat at one end of the long table, her hands twisted together. Her husband beside her kept his expression carefully calm. His parents mirrored him. Stiff and cold, across from them, two attorneys waited with their folders already open. I took my seat with Rosalind beside me. No one spoke first. It was the kind of silence meant to intimidate. Finally, Sabrina's father-in-law cleared his throat. Eleonora, we requested this meeting because your recent behavior raises concern. There have been indications of cognitive decline. My jaw tightened. Cognitive decline, I repeated quietly. Sabrina's husband added, we believe it may be best for everyone if you transfer control of your accounts. Strictly for your safety. Sabrina nodded weakly. Mom, it is not an attack. We just want to help keep everything organized. I let their words settle. Then I opened my folder. Before we continue, I said, I brought a few items we should all look at. I slid the first set of papers across the table. Rosalind's voice remained steady. These are drafts of power of attorney and beneficiary documents. They contain forged versions of Eleonora's signature. Sabrina's husband stiffened. Anyone could have drafted those. Then let us move to the IP logs, I said, placing the next printouts in front of him. These detail the attempted access to my trust accounts. The address belongs to your firm. He opened his mouth, closed it again, and finally, I said, pulling out the last envelope. These are transparency disclosures filed directly with state regulators 2 days ago. Everything you hope to use against me is already documented, reviewed, and secured. The room shifted, Sabrina's face drained of color. I looked directly at her. You wanted to protect your lifestyle, and you were willing to sacrifice me to keep it. She shook her head quickly. I did not. I just wanted to make things easier. Her husband cut in. She barely knew what any of this meant. She is not responsible. Sabrina flinched at his tone. Realizing he had thrown her under the bus, I closed my folder. Here is my ultimatum. You stop all attempts to access or manage my assets. You cut every effort to use my name, my history, or my accounts for your gain, and you do it today. No one argued. Sabrina lowered her head, tears building. But the damage was already sitting between us like a signed contract. The moment the conference room door clicked shut behind the attorneys, Sabrina stood up so fast, her chair screeched across the floor. You made me look insane in front of them, she cried. You let them treat me like I was stupid. I showed the truth, I said quietly. She wiped her face with the back of her hand. No, you ambushed me. You have been lying my entire life. First about who you were, then about what you had, and now about all of this. I stepped toward her. I lied to shield you. She stared at me like the words were poison. And you, I continued, lied to destroy me. She shook her head violently. I was not trying to destroy you. I was trying to build a life. A real one. A respectable one. You never gave me that. I had to claw my way into every room. That was never because of money. I said, it was because you believed worth comes from being admired. Sabrina's voice cracked. I believed what you taught me, that we were nothing, that we were small. I wanted you safe, I whispered. Well, it backfired. She snapped. My husband told me everything could have been avoided if you had just transferred the accounts. He said you refused because you do not trust me. I looked at her steadily. I refused because the people advising you are using you. She backed away. You always think the worst of me. Her husband stepped in quietly, placing a hand on her shoulder. Come with me. Sabrina, you do not owe her anything. Sabrina leaned into him. The choice was clear. I reached for her, but she turned her face away. I cannot do this right now, she whispered. I choose my marriage. The air in the room thinned. I felt something inside me fracture, clean and sharp. I hear you, I said softly, and I walked out before she could see how deeply she had cut me. By late spring, I had packed the last boxes from my old house and moved into a small rental near Laurelhurst Park. It was nothing extravagant. 2 bedrooms, a narrow kitchen, sunlight that came in soft through thin curtains. But it was mine, quiet, unburdened. Rosalind visited often, usually with folders. Since you are public again, she said one afternoon, we can redirect some of your old investments. You always talked about helping local students. Now is the time. So we did. We created grants for Portland teenagers studying engineering or programming. Small stipends at first, then larger ones. It felt honest, something that did not hide or harm. Summer slipped into fall. My days were simple morning walks, paperwork, the occasional student who came by to thank me. No lawyers, no raised voices, no accusations. When Thanksgiving returned, I prepared a modest meal and invited 2 neighbors, an elderly couple who lived across the hall. We ate quietly, laughing about burnt rolls and family stories that had aged into jokes instead of scars. I did not think about last year until the doorbell rang. A delivery driver handed me a small envelope. No name on the front, just my phone buzzing a second later. A message from Sabrina. Mom, can we talk? I know I have no right to ask. I do not know where else to go. I sat at the table, reading it again and again. My neighbors kept chatting in the kitchen, unaware that the world inside me had tilted. I did not reply. I did not block her either. I placed the phone face down, breathed slowly, and carried the empty plates to the sink. The night settled around me gentle, quiet, steady, and for the first time in years, I felt the kind of peace that did not demand anything in return. The ruling came down on a gray morning in December. Rosalind called me first. It is done, she said. The judge found attempted financial fraud. Your daughter's husband loses his partnership immediately. His parents lose 3 major contracts for ethics violations. I closed my eyes. And Sabrina. She receives formal penalties, community service hours, and mandatory financial counseling. No jail time. But her marriage is over. I thanked her quietly and ended the call. That afternoon, Sabrina knocked on my door. No makeup, no jewelry, no arrogance left to hold her upright. She stepped inside as if the air itself weighed too much. I am not here to beg, she said. I know what I did. I know why I did it, and I know I hurt you. I sat across from her. Then tell me the truth. She rubbed her palms together. I wanted their approval. I wanted the life they promised me, and I thought, if I controlled your assets, they would finally see me as someone worth keeping. I kept my tone steady. You put your value in their hands, and when they were done using you, they let you fall. Her voice cracked. Mom, I lost everything. I leaned forward. Love does not erase consequence. You must rebuild yourself before you rebuild us. Tears slid down her face, but she nodded. I understand. Weeks passed before she returned this time with a tiny bundle in her arms. Her daughter, my granddaughter. Sabrina held her out carefully. Would you like to meet her? I lifted the baby, warm and impossibly small. Her fingers curled around mine with the kind of trust adults forget how to give. There will be no lies in your generation. I whispered to her. Sabrina watched, quiet and unsure, but willing. Later, when they left, I stepped outside. The winter sun slipped through the bare Portland trees, thin but honest. I stood in it without hiding, without fear, without the weight of buried history pressing on my back. The truth had cost me dearly, but it had finally set me free.